From very young age, I didn't really have the interest, to be the richest man in the cemetery. And there will be a day that, we will come to the end of our life, and I didn't want to look in the mirror and tell myself that I only thought about myself.
Hello everyone, welcome to UNICEF Mongolia podcast. Today I'm very excited to be joined by our UN resident coordinator, Mr. Jaap van Hierden. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
And thank you so much for having me. I mean, I'm quite excited about this new podcast series that you guys have started. And thank you for having me as one of your first guinea pigs, I suppose.
My pleasure. I want to start our conversation with your personal story, how your journey did bring you to where you are today.
Yeah. So how did my journey end up in the United Nations and to visit all these places and living in all these places that I've been? From very young age, I didn't really have the interest, to be the richest man in the cemetery. And there will be a day that, we will come to the end of our life, and I didn't want to look in the mirror and tell myself that I only thought about myself. That just didn't excite me. And maybe that is also the generation that I grew up in. I was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, from the country that I was in the Netherlands, in Europe. There was this mindset that we had to contribute towards building a better society, one that benefits everyone. We had to be good stewards of our planet and everything that's on it, whether these are plants or animals. I'm very driven by, for my children, my grandchildren, to have that same experience. This very unique experience that's still there, to see the special places that is there for them as well. So in other words, that we are good stewards, we hand over well to the next generation.
At the same time, it's a tough job, right? Going around the world and seeing the most complex situations. And I'm interested in to know what keeps you inspired and stay in this field.
Yes, it is not always easy, and most certainly it's not always easy for those that come with you, because it's not their decision. But professionally, it's very exciting. You get to see a lot of the world. If you have that interest to really experience societies, different cultures, different ways of life, different thinking, you can only really experience it if you live in those places. And that is what my kind of job gives you, because you're really able to be immersed, in different countries and work with people with different perspectives. So from that, it's priceless. The work of the United Nations, what it stands for, the values that we're trying to bring, I mean, that's priceless. That keeps me going.
And coming to Mongolia, I have to say you've been an impressive RC resident coordinator. So I'm interested in to know, how do you feel about your journey in Mongolia as a resident coordinator?
I have just started, and I don't know, how impressive I am or will be. But what I can promise everyone is I will try to do my best. I'm here to serve. I'm here to really listen very carefully to what is important for Mongolians, for the people, for the leadership, whether it's local, international levels, the national levels. Very important also for me as resident coordinator that we bring the expertise of the development partners together. That is not just the United Nations and it's various organizations, it's also NGOs. It's also other international organizations when we look at international financial institutions. And so many other, development partners joining our forces to look at the different parts of what builds our future, right? The different. And if we look at the United Nations again, at the moment we're on the 2030 journey for all of us globally. And here in Mongolia, you have the 2050 vision. For me as a new resident coordinator, I was very happy to learn that the two of them were aligned. And when I read your 2050 vision, I'm very inspired by it. Because it really wants for everyone, every Mongolian to benefit from the potential that you have. And you have incredible potential as a country. But you also have deep-seated problems. I mean, you are an upper middle-income country, yet more than 27% of your population is still considered poor. That's truly not acceptable. But what is also good, your leadership understands that and wants to fix that. And I think this is also where we as United Nations come in to help them to see whether we can work together and to truly have inclusive development, to build up your middle class, and to build a better future for all.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of One UN and partnership, one of the unique thing about your role is you have the bird eye view. You see how different UN agencies are joining forces and working together. Is there can you share an example of a collaboration between maybe UNICEF, UNDP, or other agencies working together and creating an impact that wouldn't have been possible doing alone?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, I've just arrived in Mongolia, so I want to be very careful to make any particular comments on what's happening here in Mongolia. But from my experience over the years, and I've been in the UN since '91, I was out for 5 years. My experience is it's better to work together. It's better to use each other's complementarities and to align mandates than to compete with one another. And I think this is also where, as a resident coordinator, I have the very important responsibility in making sure that everybody gets on board with that. And that's not always easy, because sometimes, very normally, as an organization, people working for the organization, some of us may have worked there for 10, 15, 20 years. It's a job as well. It brings income, it pays for your family. So we would like to keep that going, right? And then you can sometimes get into survival thinking. But that is not how we as United Nations should function. We're here, we have the role to serve and to work and to support the country to which we are assigned to. That is our key responsibility. And if there is a reason for one of us to no longer be totally needed in a particular organization, and sometimes difficult decisions need to be made as well. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, and if I look at the United Nations family here in Mongolia, you have 24 UN organizations on Mongolia. 12 of them are here on the ground. And what is really nice about this UN system is all these different organizations have different mandates, different expertise, and we can really, provide joint offerings where we bring it together. And you have much higher impact with more efficiencies and effectiveness.
Of course. My next question is a bit tricky one, but it comes from a popular demand. Which agency is the best one?
I will never answer that because I don't think there is a best agency, truly, honestly. I mean, as I said earlier, I've been around for more than 30 years. And what I really learned to appreciate, first, if you look at the United Nations, it's an extremely large and complex body of different agencies, funds, programs, departments, commissions. It's very large and complex. But each and every one of them have their role to play, and they have, their mandate. Some of them are very operational. Others are more technical and substantive. Others, again, are very normative and policy-driven. Others are very much at the leadership and the political level. But together, we're all needed. And then if you also look at the UN system more generally, I mean, we have bodies like the General Assembly, right? We have the 193 member states coming together. We have the Security Council, where in principle we should try to make sure that we have a peaceful world. So we have these mechanisms, and what we are working on right now is to see whether we can improve upon them. But that's not just for the UN to decide. Actually, it's for the member states to drive that process.
With all your experiences leading a change in different contexts in the world, what would be the one key lessons that you would like our listeners to take in terms of leading a change, and how can we apply it to Mongolia?
Change comes from within each and every one of us. It is very important that when we engage in a country, we do it on the demand and the leadership of the people of that country. The communities, the local leadership, the national leadership. It is their country, it is their future. What we bring in as United Nations, different organizations, is the international expertise, the international best practices, lessons learned, what worked well elsewhere. It may not entirely work here, so you have to understand the context and to give advice and to see how we can co-create solutions that indeed help build that better future that leaves no one behind, which I know Mongolia really wants to do. And when we look at building that better future to leave no one behind, I'm also looking at your animals, your plants, so to speak, your beautiful nature that you have. And I think that is going to be one of the challenges of Mongolia. where you have tremendous potential through mining or through other resources that you have, but at the same time you have very high risks. Now, so how do we balance development with conservation? And I think this is also one of the areas that we can provide advice on and support.
My next question is, lately we've been hearing a lot about ongoing UN reforms. Can you tell to our audience about this a bit, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, so it's always good to adjust, right, and to adjust to the reality. And if you look at the United Nations was born after the Second World War in 1945. It has a very good charter, which is totally relevant today, UN Charter. It has a very good human rights charter, and so much good work has happened over the last 80 years. But it's always good to be fit for purpose, and I think what we see today, and it already started with the previous, of course, every Secretary General has looked at it, but one of the things that the current Secretary General has really said is, listen, we really need to be fit for purpose. One of the immediate areas that he tackled was indeed the resident coordinator function, the coordination of our different UN organizations. That was initially co-located with a representative position with one of the organizations. And in 2019, that position was placed under the Secretary General. It reports to the Secretary General. It's an independent, neutral, impartial position. And it's there to really bring the most out of the different UN organizations, to come up with solutions and support that truly benefit those that are on the ground, those that we're there to serve. So what we see today is, yes, I mean, if you come from outside the UN, some of it might feel like, oh, this was triggered by the finance crisis. Yes, the finance crisis is there. And when there is a crisis, that's also an opportunity to make real change. So, but the change was a journey that started already several years ago. And for the United Nations, we have the ambitions to always be more efficient and effective. So if I look at it, what's happening this year, yes, tremendous opportunities as well. Challenges, risks, but the opportunity that we have because of this particular crisis is to see what we can do to truly make the United Nations fit for purpose, to look at all the different agencies, funds and programs, departments we have, to look at their mandates as well, to see to what extent, we can align more, we can be more efficient, more effective. We need to look at how well our oversight bodies are working, how well the General Assembly is working, and Security Council and all of those. So I think it's a good moment, perhaps, for a potential reset for the United Nations to be fit for purpose today and for the near future.
Of course. Before we wrap up, to our children who are listening to this, what would be one key essential skill for the future for them that you would advise them to go after?
I think if there is one skill I had to pick of, I think it's digital literacy.
Of course.
Right? I think that is really critical going forward. We have artificial intelligence now in our world today, and I think we thought things changed a lot over the last 20, 30 years with the internet technology and so much that has happened, but it's only accelerating. And I think with artificial intelligence, things will accelerate even more, the robotics technology that will come up. I think, again, we have an exciting few years ahead of us. It's also going to be a very difficult few years ahead of us because with opportunities comes challenges, comes risks. And we should not lose our humanity in all of this. So we'll see.
Yeah, humanity is always the number one.
Yes,
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, but to close up, stage is yours. If you have any closing statements or messages that you would like our listeners to stay with.
Not really. I mean, certainly, maybe the one message I would like to give to you is that from an outsider coming to Mongolia, I see tremendous opportunity. I see a really good future for the people of Mongolia. You have the resources to make that happen. I think you have the will to make it happen, and we're there to support you in that journey. So we look forward to the next few years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for making time and coming to our studio today.
Thank you.